Hi guys, and a very warm welcome back to the channel. Another video about the 900 DSX, and this video is primarily targeted towards the UK audience and the UK people who are thinking of buying this 900 DSX adventure bike. And the reason I'm making this video is that I own this bike and I've owned it for 6 months, so I'm not reviewing it as a test ride. I'm not a test reviewer. I'm an owner of the bike. I know everything about the bike, all the foibles, what it does, what it doesn't do, etc, etc, etc. So the purpose of this video is to put a few things straight for the British buying market and to give you guys the absolute truth, so you know what you're getting into and you know what you're buying. Now, there's a lot of comments on the UK reviewer sites, negative comments about the bike being a Chinese bike, and people worried about the reliability, the build quality, etc, etc, etc. Now, I'm going to try and put some of these myths to bed and get the elephant in the room out of the way and go through a few of the truths about this bike. The manufacturer of this bike is a company called Lonsin. Now, most of you won't know the name Lonsin, it will go above your heads, but Lonsin produce about 2 million, you heard me right there, 2 million bikes a year, and they produce about 3 million engines. Now, this is where it gets interesting. 20 years ago, in the BMW lineup of the F Series, the engines were made by an Austrian company called Rotax. And when Rotax stopped making engines for BMW, these are Rotax's own engines, BMW approached Lonsin to produce a parallel twin engine for their F-Series bikes. And they've had a partnership with BMW Lonsin for roughly 20 years. And pretty much in that last 20 years, every parallel twin engine that's gone into a BMW is made by Lonsin. Now, Lonsin a few years ago decided, although they make a lot of bikes, in fact they make in its entirety a bike for BMW. The 400 scooter is totally made in the Lonsin factory and it's shipped straight to BMW, the BMW badge on. And we're going to talk about this one in a minute, but going further with this Lonsin story, the engines that are made for BMW and have been made for the last few years fit into a chassis from the 850 down that is identical to the chassis on this bike. So I'm going to walk you around the bike now and show you some things. We'll become a bit clearer. This engine cover was from AliExpress. It's for an F850 GS BMW. Fits straight on, exactly the same. It's debadged. If you get a rear hugger for the rear wheel, the rear hugger has to fit on this arrangement here. You've got to take this pin out, the back pin, and it fits within this slot, and it's got an access point at the back for chain tensioning. The swing arm and the rear hugger that you can buy on AliExpress, or if you buy one directly from BMW, if you want the BMW logo on it, will fit directly onto this bike. If you go onto Google and you get a picture of the Vosges 900 DSX and you zoom in at this part of the chassis, the swing arm, this section that's coming up here, the engine where it's hung off the bolts, the 2 bolts here, identical, exactly the same. Wheels, if you look at the wheels on the BMW 850, F850 GS, exactly the same wheels. Brembo brakes, the same. So what's different? Okay, the front forks are different in as much as they've got KYB forks on, and the rear suspension is different in as much as it's got KYB on the back. Now, with the suspension, the chassis, the wheels and everything else, apart from the front forks and the rear shock being identical, it begs the thought where if Lonsin are sending this bike out as a rolling chassis in the form of the 850 and upwards, and maybe some of the 900 series that have been out for a long time for BMW in the 900 sports bikes. Now, we know that the F900 GS has a different chassis configuration, it's slightly different, so that is a later model, but there's certainly the chassis on this, the cradle that holds the engine cover, everything is the same configuration as the F850 GS. So basically, you've got a bike that's very similar configured. You've got Brembo brakes on it, you've got KYB on the front and back for the suspension, you've got Bosch system running all the internals, and a lot of the components on the bike are really, really high-end. Brembo brakes, like I said before. So, addressing the whole situation as to the reliability of this bike, the build quality and the reliability is, whoops, a bit of a seesaw effect there on the top stand. The build quality and the reliability is up there with all the other bikes. If you get a KTM, if you get a BMW, all of them can have mapping problems with the throttle, and engine management and software updates are generally done in main dealerships. Now, the general consensus in the UK is that MotoGP do not want any of their testers mentioning BMW. And you can understand why now. This bike came into Spain in April. I got this back end of April. And it's the biggest selling bike in Spain for years. The last 2 quarters in Spain, this has been the top selling bike above the 125 category. So 125 and below, where you've got your little scooters, obviously there's more of them selling in that group category. But in the category of bike that's in 125 and above, this is the fastest selling bike in Spain. It has been for the last 6 months. So it tells you a lot about the bike and the confidence people are having in buying this bike. Now, here in Spain, we've had a Vosges network for about 5 years. It's quite a popular bike. It's a popular brand, and Vosges have got main offices in the north of Spain and a good dealer network. It's not a subsidised network like MotoGP in the UK. So what I can say, guys, is really you're not going to be able to test ride them soon in the UK. This happened in Spain. We never had a test bike in Spain for this bike. We all saw it at EICMA in the Italian motor show. I saw a lot of Russian reviews. The bikes were sent to testers in Russia. I also saw a few Chinese reviews before I bought it. I saw the bike at EICMA, which was slightly different, ever so slightly on the quick shifter and a few bits and bobs. And I thought, if this comes in at the right price, this is going to sell. Anyway, it came up for pre-sale here in Spain in November 23. And every dealership that as a Vosges dealership had a mountain of paperwork with people putting deposits down on the bike, sight unseen, untested. Now, from what I can gather in the UK, the same thing has happened there in the UK. It's been said on a few forums and a few YouTube channels now that very soon you're not going to be able to get a test bike of this in the UK to try and test. They're going to be on pre-order, so you're going to buy them off plan if you like. So you're going to buy it and pay your money, pay your deposit, and wait till the bike comes in. One things about that, no dealership's going to hold you to a deposit. What they're probably going to do, if you put a deposit down in the UK, put 500 quid or 1,000 quid down, they're either going to give you a voucher to use that 500 in store, they're going to give you your cash back, or they're going to say, well, as soon as somebody else wants the bike, we'll give you your money back. It's going to be one of them 3 options. You're not going to lose your money in its entirety. So guys, yeah, 6 months in, the original software it came with, very, very jerky. If you go back on my channel to the early videos on this, I found a throttle mod that was not actually for, here we go again. I found a throttle mod that was not actually for this bike. It was for the CF Moto 800 MT. And it turned out that the 800 MT and this have the same Bosch ECU and software. And I tried it and it made a massive, massive difference how it rode. It wasn't perfect, but it certainly made it rideable. I believe the 4.2 update gave riders the option to change ride modes on the fly. The 4.3, I'm not sure. 4.4, people have got 4.4 in Europe, in Russia and in Eastern Europe. There's a lot of people on certain forums that are running 4.4. My initial video for updating to 4.4, there was a few faults on there because I had a piece of paper that was in Chinese and I had a Chinese video and I was trying to decipher it from there. On the piece of paper it gave a series of 8s for the password, and there was 7 8s, so 7 times for the password, and it turns out it was 8 8s, 8864, but 8 8s in a row. During my half an hour trying to get the software to work and to get the connection with the bike, at some point I must have put an extra 8 in and it just worked. But I just took it as read off the paperwork that it was 7. So if you're going to try this software update, nothing to worry about. There's a few people done it now, and they've all had magical comments on. If you go through my pages, there's a few pages on the 4.4 update, and the last 2, if you troll through the comments on there, people are starting to try it now. There's a couple of guys tried it in Liverpool and they're saying exactly the same as I've said. It's like night and day. Now, what will happen with the global market with this bike? I'm sure BMW are quaking, I'm sure KTM are quaking, and I would imagine that the Asian market, the Japanese market and the European market are really quaking in the boots with what Lonsin are doing with these bikes now. The fact that Lonsin designed the engine and probably built the chassis has probably give them, they must have had some agreement with BMW to push this out, but I'm thinking that BMW never envisaged what would happen with this particular model. We have container loads, shipping container loads come in at a time into the docks here in Spain, and they're all allocated, and there's videos here in Spain over the last 6 months of thousands of these Vosges 900s in containers going into a central warehouse and being shipped all over the Iberian Peninsula to Portugal and Spain, and they're all sold before they actually get to the dealerships. The deposits are down and people have bought them. So I would fully recommend you buying this bike, guys. There's nothing to be afraid of. Don't book because it's Chinese. Don't know what the network's going to be like in the UK for getting it serviced, but any BMW service centre will be able to service this engine. It's the same engine. They know exactly what they're doing. It's easy enough to service yourself at home, but main services like valves and stuff like that, any BMW service, if you cannot get it serviced, will be able to service it for you, or any garage that's used to working on this BMW engine, or this Lonsin engine, I should say, that BMW use in their bikes. So yeah, I'm going to go for another ride. I've been on it most days. Since I've done the update, I can't get off it, guys. It's so nice to ride. Got a really nice engine note to it, but the build quality in general it's superb all round. There's nothing you can say about it. There's nothing that I look at and think they've cut the corners on that. It's a bit plasticky. It's even down to the luggage. The luggage is not made by Vosges, it's made by Lobu. Again, you can go to their website. It's a Chinese website. It's all in Chinese, but they're massive in China for making this equipment and the luggage and all the rest of it. So it's top quality gear, all of it. And now with the plethora of other things that are coming out, Givi do racks now, and you can buy racks directly from AliExpress that are pretty cheap, boxes that are pretty cheap. I don't suspect they're the same quality as these. They seem to be riveted pieces all around, but again, if you want a cheaper box or you want a Givi set or a Shad set, they're all available now. Yeah, so it's comfortable to ride. It's not overly high off the ground. 825 C-type. If you've got an inside seam 30 plus, you'll flat foot it no problem. If you're a bit shorter, you'll still flat foot it, but you'll have to have one foot on the ground and the other on a tiptoe. So guys, yeah, don't be afraid of buying this in the UK. Hit me up in the comments below. Like I said, I've had it for a while now. There's nothing gone wrong with it. There's no... In fact, I'll give you another comment that I'll make, that Vosges dealerships in the UK as well as here in Spain and in the Iberian Peninsula, they don't have any bikes going back with faults. All the other bikes they have, like Suzuki's, Hondas, they may have a fault with something might not work, they might get an engine management light. 6 months with this, zilch, nothing, absolutely nothing. And the Vosges dealerships here will tell you the same. These bikes do not go back to Vosges dealerships to have anything done to them on warranty. Touch wood. So guys, I'm going to leave it there. Buy with confidence, give me a like, subscribe, ask me anything you want to ask me about this bike. Don't be afraid to buy it. This is a F850 GS in different clothing. It's not a BMW, we know that, but the chassis, the swing arm, the engine, the components on it are all top end. So ride safe, guys. Subscribe, like, give me a thumbs up, leave comments if you've done the 4.4 update. It's very gives a lot more people a lot more confidence to do it, and it gives me good feedback. So I'm going to sign out. Take care, ride safe, peace out, guys.